Welcome into Outkick the Show. I am your fearless leader, Clay Travis, the only person it feels like in the entire country who has not succumbed to absolute coronavirus hysteria in the world of sports and beyond. I feel like we're going to have to do this daily to try to push back as best we can on all of the hysteria that is characterizing our nation right now. The corona crazies is a good way of putting them. So let's go ahead and dive in. We got a bunch of different things to get to, and let me give you a rundown of where we're headed. Coronavirus crazies, the NCAA, what's going to happen there, the NBA, the Ivy League, among others, all with aspects here. Donald Trump has become a political target here. The U.S. women's lawsuit. Let's see, what else do we have to talk about? The Bachelor, Bernie getting whipped by Joe Biden, and everything else. There's a lot to talk about, and obviously we cover a lot of ground on this program. For those of you who are new to it, this is what we do. We talk about the serious, we talk about the fun, we talk about things that are top of my mind, whatever the storylines of the day are. And we begin with the coronavirus hysteria. Let me give you the latest updates in the world of sports. The Ivy League has announced that they are going to cancel the remainder of the season for all men's and women's sports. So that means for instance, lacrosse, men's lacrosse, 3 of the top 5 teams are not going to play amidst this hysteria, okay? That is going on right now as we speak. I believe the NCAA tournament, which begins on Tuesday, is likely to be played in much of the country, if not all of the country, without any fans present, as Ohio's governor has announced, where the first 4 begins in Dayton, that there will be no fans present for any major sporting events requiring over 250 people, I think it is, in the state overall. That is not all of this story. The NBA has announced that the Golden State Warriors, by virtue of the mayor's proclamation in the city of San Francisco, will not be playing in front of fans in San Francisco. Insert your own joke about the Golden State Warriors not deserving fans this year. So those are all sports-related stories as it currently stands, and we begin our conference tournament play. All right? Now, let me tell you a couple of things that I think are significant about this. We are right now in what I would call a reverse arms race. Everybody is desperately attempting to put down their weapons as quickly as they possibly can. Let me explain what I mean. The arms race, for those of you who are young and don't remember it, in the Cold War was characterized by a mutually assured destruction. We were all spending way more money on defense than we possibly needed. Now, you could make an argument this was a brilliant strategy by Ronald Reagan and it helped to bankrupt the Soviet Union because they couldn't keep up with us. But regardless of your knowledge here, essentially, we were both spending way more than would ever be necessary to annihilate each other 1,000 times over. It was about who had the biggest arsenal. Right now, if you want to translate it to college athletics, this is what goes on with recruiting. Everybody's always building a new indoor football facility. Everybody's always building a new weight room. It's all designed to compete with everybody else. Everybody tears down their new stuff after about 10 or 15 years. This is the modern day athletics version of an arms race. I believe what has happened in this environment is teams and leagues and politicians and political figures and companies are all competing to react the most to the coronavirus by being the most possibly protective, i.e. the Ivy League is right now ahead of all other college athletics in making the most draconian moves possible in order so that they can say, hey, we are the most protected. We have got the most gear on. We are laying down everything and running in the opposite direction. It's the exact opposite of an arms race. It's a contest to see who can surrender the most completely in the shortest amount of time. It's like the French in World War II. all right? And so, as you watch these results unfurl, the problem is a precedent gets set as one school or conference or entity becomes the most aggressive in the way that they are attempting to combat the coronavirus. So the precedent is constantly being set backwards, right? First thing is, we're still going to have the games. Next thing that happens is, well, we're still going to have the games, but we're not going to have fans present. And then the next drawback is, well, we're not even going to play the games at all. You see how it keeps getting set further backwards, right? And that's because the precedent is constantly being reset along the battle, okay? So this is important, okay? I am a data guy. And this upsets some people because I think they want to succumb to fear porn and they want to all believe the worst that is out there. Here's the data that I think is important. China and South Korea, and it appears Japan, have all effectively stopped the spread of the virus in their countries. That's despite the fact that they all had more cases than the United States. That's because the coronavirus is not as contagious as the flu, okay? It's not as contagious as the flu. And on top of it not being as contagious as the flu, it also doesn't have the death rate that many want to believe it does because the vast majority of people who get the coronavirus don't show symptoms. The best data set that we have anywhere in the world is South Korea because they have been the most aggressive to test. And in South Korea, regardless of age, 99.4% of all coronavirus victims, that's people who get it, are recovering. Let me repeat this. 99.4% of all coronavirus victims in South Korea are recovering. The death rate is not 2%. It's not 3%. It's not even 1%. And our best valid data set that exists anywhere in the world, the best valid data set is South Korea, and it appears that the death rate is around 0.6%. Okay? That's more than the flu on average, but it's really just a virulent flu. If this virus were as much of a threat as people want to believe it is, okay, the fear porn purveyors, then it would have spread and not been able to be stopped in Wuhan, China, and also in South Korea, and also in Japan. And I believe that Italy's draconian measures will likely have an impact that will allow them to also recover from this, okay? So, people say, what's the likely outcome? I'll get to that in a second based on all the data that I am seeing, all right? But here's something else that I think is important. Right now, we are dealing with an absolute mania, okay? A mania that is going on that is not rational in any way. Hysteria has begun to govern. And I think one reason that's starting to happen in the United States is there's a desire to turn this into a political issue. So I just want to share some data for you. If you truly believe, if you are a Democrat or an independent, and you hate the way that Donald Trump is responding to the coronavirus, my suggestion to you is pretty straightforward. Tell us what should be occurring in your mind that isn't occurring, as opposed to attacking the President of the United States and saying he's not up to the job. He's going to be president throughout the entire coronavirus crisis, okay? That's not going to change. The election is not until November. The chances of this continuing into November are minuscule, okay? And so, if you believe that there are things that we should be doing as a country, then share those, regardless of what your politics are, because I like to believe no one is in favor of death. Everyone who is in America would like to see fewer people die than more people die. So if you believe that there are standards and practices that we should be adopting, then suggest what those are. Don't attack the president and say he's not up to the job. He's got the job. It ain't changing. We're not suddenly going to shift who the president is, all right? He's going to have the job throughout the coronavirus crisis, all right? Here is what I would tell you, okay? If Donald Trump is doing an awful job as president, let's just look at the data. The United States right now has around 1,000 coronavirus cases and around 30 deaths, okay, roughly. Italy has 12,000 cases of the coronavirus. Every major European country, England, France, Germany, Italy, like I just said, Spain, all of them per capita have more coronavirus infections in their country than we do in ours. So is every European president, regardless of their political party, doing an awful job of being president? Or is it that this is a global issue that presidents really don't have a lot of control over since this broke out in Asia? Also, Iran, 9,000 cases. South Korea, nearly 8,000. China, 81,000. Japan, over 1,200. All of these countries with different types of political leaders from across the spectrum of the world are all having more on a either total number or per capita basis on population than the United States is. Okay? This is important. You look at Italy, they have 12,000-ish cases. They have 1/6 of the population of the United States. Italy has right now an outbreak that is around 72 times the overall virulence of the United States outbreak, right? 12 times 6 equals 72. This would be like if the United States had 72,000 cases right now in our country as opposed to 1,000 as a percentage of the population. But my question for you would be fairly straightforward. If you truly believe that Donald Trump is doing an awful job, what are the leaders of Germany, England, France, Italy, Japan, Iran, China, South Korea, what are they doing that is so much worse than Donald Trump, such that they have much worse virus outbreaks than we do? That would be my question for you. To me, this is not political. I think this is a unfortunate side straddle here. And I don't think this is good. For Joe Biden, if you disagree with what the president is doing, or Bernie Sanders or anybody else, tell us what should be going on to save lives. It's not valuable to criticize the president over this. All right? This is pretty straightforward. If you believe that Trump is doing a bad job, then you must believe that every leader in the free world is doing a bad job. Straightforward. That's what I am saying as you break down the overall global impact of this situation. Okay? It's pretty straightforward. All right. Any questions that you guys have? I haven't read a single comment in the first 15 minutes or so of my discussion here. What questions do you have? This is, I believe, the panic is much more significant than the actual threat. I believe if you look at the actual data, the likelihood here is that 1,000 people or less will die in the United States. Where do I get that data from? I get that data from what happened in China. China had a much more virulent outbreak than we did. They had around 3,000 deaths, okay? If China is capable of restricting this despite the fact that the outbreak happened in their country and they had no idea what was happening, then to me, since we have roughly 1/4 of the population of China, we should have roughly 1/4 of the casualty rate that China is going to have, and that might be high, particularly because the flu kills tens of thousands of people every year. Right now, we have 4,000 and change deaths from the coronavirus. Every hour in every hour in the world, 6,250 people die. All right? Right now, we have 4,000 deaths. I wish nobody died. Nobody hates death more than me. But this is a drop in the bucket compared to our population of 7.7 billion. And for everybody out there peddling the fear porn, what all of those graphs that you're looking at telling us that the world is basically going to end, don't presume, is what we've already seen happen in China and South Korea and Japan. The infection rate doesn't continue like a hockey stick. It gets ameliorated by action, which is what is going to happen as well here. All right? This is a no-brainer. What do I think is going to happen with the NCAA tournament? I happened to pop over, and that was the most common question I was getting. I think they'll play without fans. I think the NCAA tournament will take place without fans. And right now, Clay Kyle is going to go in and absolutely wipe out a few people and just end them forever, coronavirus style, except actually with impact as opposed to creating a mild cold in the vast majority of the people out there. All right? So, I'm glancing over at the comments now. If I look at you and I think, is this what a loser would be saying, then that person is going to be wiped out forever. All right? You'll be gone forever. And then you have to be such a loser that you create a fake situation in order to hop in here. So let me go ahead. Now is the time, by the way. Now is the time to hop in and be buying stocks. If you've got cash on the sideline, buy it, sit on it for 10 years. In 10 years' time, come back to me and say, you are absolutely a genius. Thank you for making me so much money. All right? That is what's going on and how we can wipe out so many different people. All right. A couple of other things that I want to hit on. Yes, I do believe China's data because it roughly reflects what South Korea is saying. I'm not a guy who believes you can fake all sorts of illnesses, everything in that way. I think that China is often untrustworthy. I don't believe that their data is off because it's reflected also in Japan and South Korea, which appear to be countries that are somewhat reliable. All right, a couple of other things that I want to hit. Bernie got absolutely destroyed. Got absolutely destroyed, Bernie did. His campaign is over. Joe Biden is going to be your nominee. And amazingly, I think we're going to have a battle between Joe Biden and Donald Trump, where Joe Biden is actually the bigger wild card in terms of what he might say and do. Yesterday at a factory, when he was asked about Second Amendment issues, Joe Biden threatened a factory worker and asked him to go outside and fight. Now, this is crazy in and of itself because can you imagine what would happen if Donald Trump threatened a factory worker to go outside and fight? Secondly, Joe Biden would get absolutely destroyed if he actually got into a fight with a factory worker. But what is interesting to me is people say all the time, oh, Donald Trump is devaluing the overall presidency. To my knowledge, I don't think that Donald Trump has ever threatened to fight a voter who disagreed with him. That's what Joe Biden did yesterday. It's March. This is going to be absolutely wild to see how this shakes down going forward. All right? And as a result, I think this is going to be an incredibly interesting election. But Bernie Sanders should drop out. I got to give credit to the Democratic Party for executing an Order 66 from Star Wars, Kill All the Jedis. I got to give credit for the Code Red that they put out on the Bernie Sanders candidacy. The Bernie bros don't even know what hit them. A positive, regardless of whether you're a Democrat, Republican, or an independent, is that the socialist candidate has been wiped out. Okay, a couple of other things. The Bachelor. Did anybody watch The Bachelor last night? Did anyone see this phenomenal entertainment? It was riveting. Barb is one of the best reality show televisions we have ever seen. It was incredible. Incredible television to see the way it shook out. I appreciate Barb standing up for what she believed in, but when you're out there as a parent and you're cheering for the person who ripped your son or daughter after they became fiancés, it's a bit too much. Barb's husband, terrified to stand up to Barb in any way, even though he was sitting there in his leather jacket. It is so much fun to watch. If you're not watching The Bachelor or The Bachelorette, I don't know what you're doing with your life or your wife for that matter. This was a phenomenal show last night. And I do agree with Barb that I don't think Peter and Maddie are going to work out. I don't think they have enough in common. I think that Peter should have stuck with Hannah Ann, or more accurately, he should have just said, it's not going to work out for me here. I'm going to go back into the dating pool now that I've been The Bachelor and I'm a pilot, and there's no telling how many women I'm going to be able to sleep with around the world, all right? I like Madison too. I liked Hannah Ann. I respect both of them And I like them more than I like Peter, who came off as a sniveling wimp on this show, and frankly was hard to really root for. Didn't seem that likable. But in general, I thought the women came off a lot better than the men on this program. Finally, I got to get ready for my television program. I got to tell you, right now, let me just tell you this. There's a story that's getting some attention. The U.S. women are suing over equal pay. And I saw a bunch of the woke Twitter idiots out there angry at U.S. soccer because U.S. soccer justified the way that the salary structures are set up by saying men are better players than women are. And all of the woke universe is out there like, what are you talking about? Let me tell you this. The men are better than the women. In general, the better you are at something, the more you get paid. Not the better you are with an identity, the better you are, period. Okay? The U.S. men would beat the U.S. women 20-0 if they played. The U.S. men are infinitely more economically valuable around the world because more people watch men's soccer. That's not an indictment of the U.S. women. That is a basic economic reality. One reason the U.S. men get paid more than the U.S. women is because the U.S. men have opportunities at the highest level to play soccer for millions of dollars a year overseas. Women don't have that opportunity because the marketplace doesn't support them. In fact, the reason the U.S. women dominate is not necessarily because they're so much more talented than the other countries. It's because they have basic human rights here. Because women here get to play sports and are treated equally while women around the world are not. If the women's soccer players around the world had the same resources and opportunities, there would be a lot more competition in women's soccer. In fact, the next time the women's soccer bracket comes out, in the early rounds of the game, you can pick winners solely by looking at the overall rights allocated to women in the countries and just picking the winner based on that without even looking at the overall rest of the world. All right? This is really pretty intriguing to think about. All you have to do to pick the winners in early rounds of U.S. women's soccer is just look at where women have the most rights and freedom and just click winner there without knowing a single player, without knowing a single coach, without knowing an element of strategy. The reason why the women dominate over other women is because they have so many equal rights and freedom here, which is why my argument has been, instead of the U.S. women attacking the United States, what they should be doing is using their platform to have an opportunity to actually go out there and say the rest of the world should have the same rights as us. But this is not even remotely a difficult scenario, right? This is easy to follow. This is a straightforward argument. I like 9-year-old Little League. I coach it. I'm a fan of watching 9-year-old Little League. But the 9-year-old Little Leaguers I coach are infinitely worse than 14-year-old Little Leaguers would be, or high school kids, or college kids, or anywhere else out there. Basic economics govern sports. The more people who care about watching you and the more opportunities there are for you around the world, the more money you actually make. And so this is a really easy argument to understand. The reason why men make more than women is because men are better at soccer than the women are. Period. So getting upset because they said that in a court filing, it's the truth. That's the reason it's happening. That's the reason why it's happening. The U.S. women, I don't believe, have a very strong legal case. They're being paid far more than they would from an economic perspective. And one reason they're upset, they're saying we should be paid more for winning the Women's World Cup. The Women's World Cup champ gets a $4 million bonus from FIFA. The Men's World Cup champ gets a $48 million bonus from FIFA. That is because Men's World Cup viewing dwarfs women's around the world. That's not an American issue. That's because men around the world would rather watch men's soccer than women around the world would rather watch women's soccer. In fact, the largest percentage of women's soccer viewers around the world are male because men are more likely to be sports fans than women all around the world. Men are more competitive. Men like sporting competition more than women do. It's a reality. Might make you upset. It's the truth. All right. Love all of you. My name is Clay Travis. Kisses. DBAP unless you need to SBAP. I will see you guys tomorrow. I'll be on Lock It In here in a few minutes. We'll keep doing this show because coronavirus hysteria has taken off. I love you. I love you. And man, Clay Kyle taking out a lot of people on a day-to-day basis. Don't lose your mind. You're going to be fine. You're not going to die of coronavirus. You're not even going to get sick. And if you do get sick, there's a 99.4% chance you're going to be fine. But oh, by the way, you ain't going to get sick. See y'all. Love you, Facebook. See ya.